Thank you very much for joining us. My guest on LNC today is a political activist and social commentator. He is a TV presenter and a documentary producer who was involved in the Nigerian pro-democracy struggle, where he actually survived a trumped-up charge of treasonable offense against the then military government of General Babangida. His program is on UK's Ben TV, Politics with KO, which is well received. And we are pleased to have Kayode Ogundamisi as this week's LNC's guest. Kayode, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Do you know what? We have so many things to talk about, but let's start with the unprecedented sold-out World Cup kits, Nigeria's World Cup kits. Have you gotten yours?
I tried to, but I guess I will have to wait for my people in Aba to produce some. It's sold 3 million in 15 minutes. That's the first. You know, it's amazing.
But what would you say about that, about Nigeria? I mean, you know, the kit sold out is unprecedented. So what message is that sending to the world about Nigeria?
I think it shows that if we put in the right strategy, the right marketing strategy, that Nigeria is a marketable item. We are a beautiful country. Our people are amazing. The strength is unbelievable. Our resilience cannot be matched by any country in the world or any people in the world. Despite all the challenges, you see Nigerians still try to survive. And I think Nike recognized that. They knew, they could see what we Nigerians can't see. We Nigerians just see the positive, the negative of the country. We're just going like, oh my God, this country is useless. It's not marketable. But you can see when Nike just thought, okay, there's something in this country. Imagine out of all the countries going to the World Cup, London back-to-back in Oxford Street, Regent Street, everyone queuing up to buy Nigeria's World Cup kit. So if you design and market Nigeria quite well, Nigeria is more like an item that everyone should have. As a people, all over the world, people are doing amazing things despite the challenges and the negatives by a minority of our people trying to go into crime. So it's a welcome development. Hopefully our government will tap into that. It's not just about selling 3 million World Cup kits or being sold out in 15 minutes. It's what we get out of this World Cup. Tourism, what are they doing with the Ministry of Tourism? How are they going to attract tourists into Nigeria? How are people going to go to, say, a Kaduna, go to even Borno and visit and make money from these visits from the international community? So it's not just Nike making millions of dollars from our name, but us being able to capitalize on that to sell our country better. I mean, selling of that World Cup kit is what more than advertising, advertising Nigeria on CNN, you know. In my office in the UK, my colleagues who are, of course, white British mainly, we're talking about the kit, we're talking about Nigeria, and it's something of pride.
I've just been informed by one of our viewers that a revenue of £192 million was made from the 3 million jersey at £64 each.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And can you imagine if Nike had a company located in Aba and they had done the manufacturing in Aba or say Onitsha or somewhere in Osogbo? You can imagine the revenue, the employment that would come out of that. You can imagine the investment on the local community, and that sends a signal. But Nike will not come to Nigeria where electricity is not stable. You know, no serious company would create a firm in any part of Nigeria if they are not sure of uninterrupted electricity, if they are not sure that their people will be secured and they won't be kidnapped. So we need to learn a big lesson. That's a lot of money. That's actually the budget of maybe Ekiti State in 1 year.
Kayode, it seems you have been in politics all your life. You know, many Nigerians will say the same thing, but many aren't as vocal and as active as you are. When did you first become involved in politics, and what was the attraction?
I don't know if being involved in politics. I would say I became quite conscious about my environment, my right as a citizen from the age of say 13 and 14 in Agege. That's a suburb of Lagos State. As a student of Anwar Islam College, where I was fascinated by market women protesting in the local government. Uh, so I think as a young person, I've always been fascinated by my society, my environment. So I got involved in activism at a very early age, from my primary school in Command Children's School to Anwar Islam College. And it is said that if you live in an oppressed society, if you know Agege very well, it's not one of the best places to live in the country until recently. Downtrodden, not enough investment made into the community. So we find ourselves living in face me and face you environment. If you live in that kind of environment, you find yourself just getting engaged, asking questions why things are not right. So activism became quite attractive to me, not as a matter of choice, but as an historical accident that I really need to be involved in what takes place around me. So every decision we make as individuals, as members of the family, as government is political. So the consciousness was just there from as a young child, and it never stopped from when I went to the university, become involved in the movement, NANS movement, in the pro-democracy struggle during the military regime. So I think everyone should know that they are a political animal. It's just the level at which we participate are quite different. Some people participate at the point of just reading newspapers and making comments in their environment. What I do is to make sure my views and my voice are part of the society, and no one will stop me from hearing my voice, even if it's just me, even if I'm just one and 1 million people are on the other side. I like to be independent and hear my views. So I've been involved in the political movement for a very long time. On the other level, I have not been engaged in being elected into public office. So, there are quite different. You could be political, and you could also want to use politics as a platform to get into power. So I've never sought any elected post into public office apart from during my university days.
How do you deal with critics, though? Because you seem to attract a lot of stick on social media. How do you deal with that? That alone would have discouraged many people, but you seem to be able to deal with it. How do you deal with it?
No, there's something they say that if you criticize others, you should be ready to take criticism. You should be ready to take suggestions, and even sometimes Nigerians, we are very vociferous set of people. We speak loudly, we express, we are animated, we are quite emotional, and I could get emotional too when I believe in something. When I believe in a cause, I don't hold punches. So when people also throw punches back, I don't see any reason why I should not just take it for what it is, which is someone else expressing their opinion about me, and it doesn't mean their opinion should define my person. Sometimes I pick a lot of good things from when people criticize me, and I'm like, okay, that guy that lady's got a point. I need to make some adjustment. But if it's just criticism for the sake of criticism's sake, I just take it for what it is, which is someone trying to find a voice. And if I'm someone who's all my life made it a point that my voice must be heard, I should be able to be comfortable with the voice of others about me being heard. What I don't, the no-go area for me, the no boundary is if it becomes personal about my family or my loved ones. I sort of really annihilate the person out of my life. If the criticism is about me, about my person, about my look, about my ideas, I've got a very big room for that. But once you cross that line, if it goes into my personal, I'm very protective of my family and my children. If it crosses that line, there's no other thing than to just block the person. And that's the fantastic thing about social media. You could block people, you could mute them, you could unfollow them, because you could take them out of your personal space. And that is just the only line people cannot cross. But for every other thing, for personal abuse, for insults, for attacks, I can take that. I've been long enough to go in and out of prison under the military era. I've got personal marks on my body as a result of torture from the military government during the Babangida era. And so abuse on Facebook is just the most minimal of insults. You know, if I could withstand that, go to prison and come out quite strong, those abuse are like just refreshing my energy and my engine to do what I keep doing. Because guess what, Jide? Sometimes those kind of insult means you're doing something good, you know, especially if the insult is coming from corrupt people or people who encourage corrupt people or enablers of corruption. So if it's coming from them, then you'll feel, okay, the truth is getting home, you know. And I don't think it's any. I think we should all be tolerant of other people's opinion. I like to believe that I'm tolerant of other people's opinion.
You believe so much in the Boko Haram, the Chibok girls cause, that you produced a documentary in 2015 coping with the Boko Haram insurgency. What inspired you to produce that?
I had an interview on one of my shows with a lady from Borno State, Fatima Abubakar. She's a celebrated, very well unknown then, but she's a celebrated Nigerian photographer from Borno State today, sought worldwide by international platforms. So I had this young, amazing, talented lady in my studio to speak about the insurgency, because I felt TV networks in the UK were not saying enough of the challenges in Borno. So when I had her in the interview and I asked her one question, I said to her, look, I asked her what people did in Maiduguri, and the things she was talking about was more or less things that I would do in Lagos. So I was fascinated, and I decided when she left the video, and at one point she was doing a master's. She had completed a master's in the UK. So I asked her, so what next? She said, I'm going back to Maiduguri. And that was the peak day of Boko Haram crisis. They were having bomb blasts almost every other week. I was fascinated that the lady chose to go back to Maiduguri. And she had opportunities there. She had a job offer, but she chose to go back to a war-torn area where crisis was like daily bread for them. So I said to myself, if this young lady could say she's going back to Maiduguri, then I, as a Nigerian, I owe it a duty to my conscience to go and find out what is happening in Maiduguri. So I took my annual leave that year, got some money together from my savings, got on the plane, got my camera, then decided to go into Maiduguri. It was the most, it was a challenging experience for me in the country. Shortly after we did some shooting in some markets, Boko Haram came, bomb blast 2 days later. We were in a community and we received a lady with a gunshot. That was in Nigeria, my own country. And
wow.
What was quite fascinating is how people got together as a community. They tried to live a normal life, and how people felt they could now differentiate between the sound of the Boko Haram gun and the sound of the Nigerian army guns. You know, people were living a life where bomb blast became a part of their lifestyle. So I was also quite interested in the internally displaced persons, which is the IDP. And I did an expose on the conditions they were living. And I was so glad. If there's any part of my activism that was quite successful in 2015, it was that documentary, because it was shortly after I released the documentary that the Nigerian government took seriously the issues of IDPs in Northeast Nigeria, especially in Borno. The Vice President office got in touch with me. They put up together a platform where they started taking care of the young children. They had a secondary school, a school which they didn't have before in the place. And the Northeast Committee, or is it commission, was formed, headed by Yara Danjuma. And I felt so relieved. There's a long way to go for those people in the country, but it's something that I was quite pleased about.
Kayode, are you surprised that after 4 years, there's still about 100 Chibok girls missing? What do you think the government is yet to do?
That's quite, you see, it's quite difficult. It's a shame that we have any Nigerian being kidnapped and held in captivity by terrorists. And I say to people, it's not just the Chibok girls. There are thousands of Nigerians that, for as long as Boko Haram has got a territory, no matter how tiny the territory is, for as long as they've got an enclave, the fact is there will be Nigerians that are held against their will in those enclaves. So it is an aberration that we could have Boko Haram still controlling any tiny bit of Nigeria in any part of the country. Then it is now outlandish that we still don't have those girls back, and it's a blight on whatever progress the current government may claim they have made. Yes, it was fantastic that they were able to get some of these girls back, but I think they need to do more so that all the Chibok girls, because the Chibok girls are just a symbol, the symbol for the movement for everyone that's kidnapped in the country. And I think the government does not seem to have the solution to it. I don't know if I have the solution, but I think we need to increase the capacity and the capability of the state to be the sole institution that has got the monopoly over violence. The state the army must be equipped enough to flush out any insurgency, especially insurgencies that will kidnap innocent people. Our Air Force must have the same equipment, surveillance equipment, area surveillance equipment to detect where insurgencies are operating for. Our police and our security forces like the SSS, we must recruit enough trained men and women to infiltrate and gather intelligence from within those communities, because some members of those communities support the insurgents. So these are massive investments that we need to invest on human intelligence resources in our country. We're not doing that. And the result of that is we are having Boko Haram with better intelligence, because they know when the Nigerian army troops are moving, they know when to ambush them, they know the soft targets, and you can ask yourself, why does an insurgent group have a better intelligence network than the force of the strongest black nation on earth? And those are hard questions that need to be asked by those people in government. Then the structure of the Nigerian police, people have been talking about state police. I think we need to consider seriously having state police, community policing. We live in the UK, and I don't know about you, but in my neighborhood, there's the police, and then there's a sort of community police, the so-called, where the street boys will say plastic police. Just seeing them on the streets, patrolling makes a difference. Seeing them talk to young children makes a difference. And you could see the results in London. As soon as there was a reduction in the number of policemen and police lack of investment in the Metropolitan Police, gun and gang crime just rose. It's simple mathematics. And those are the things we need to look at in Nigeria, that we need to invest more on our security forces. Nigeria as it is not a failed state. We're sort of moving between a stable state and a state heading towards a failed state. That narrative needs to change. And the government would need to seriously do something about that.
Wow. I couldn't help noticing a quote on top of your blog, and I read. It says, "I'm not a liberator. Liberators do not exist. The people liberate themselves." Can Nigerians liberate themselves? How can Nigeria be liberated, Kayode?
Wow, Jide, I think this is a very important question. You see, people assume activists are messiahs. Even some activists assume they are messiahs. They think they are messiahs. They think because they have 10 million followers on Facebook, 10 million followers on Twitter, or they think because they have a platform that is read all over the world, or they have a television station that is seen all over the country, they assume they suddenly have the power to change society. They arrogate into themselves the power that once they rise, the people will follow them, is complete fallacy. Over time, patriots who have made that mistake, who think because they are popular, they are loved by the people, that they can change the society, have ended up being disappointed. I'll give you an example. One of my greatest heroes in the country, Chief Ganifa Wemi, is one of the most patriotic Nigerians that ever lived, you know. And at some point, he also felt, with what I have done for the country, with my patriotism, I could form a political party and Nigerians will follow me. What happened? Jide, I don't know if you were in Nigeria at that point in time, and Obasanjo defeated Ganifa Wemi. He did not even get up to 1 million votes in the whole of the country. One other hero, fella Nicola Pokuti, you know, who transformed the image of the country, is known globally. Formed movement of the people, a political party. He didn't go past just the noise of it, you know. I could go on and on. Pat Utomi, patriots, when you assume that your patriotism is enough to move the people, it's a mistake. That brings the quote that it's the people themselves that can liberate themselves. The people must get the consciousness that if I stop being corrupt, if I stop enabling corruption, if I start doing things right, then we will change our society. Those who are leading our country now are not from Mars. They are not from Ghana. They are part of the community. So no matter if you even have a not too young to wrong bill, if you have young people, you will still pick from the element of bad young people to change the country. So patriots must know that they are just an engine oil to the community, and they must recognize that they are not messiahs. And that's the point of the quote. So I always recognize that I am not a messiah. I am a servant with a voice, and I should continue to use my voice to transmit what I feel about my society. It is now left for the people to change themselves. And it is now left for other patriots to galvanize themselves together and form a coalition. So until the Nigerian patriots form a coalition to change the system, we're just wasting our time. If you just wake up today and say, yeah, I'm going to change, I will be president of the country, then I will change the system. Buhari has taught us a lesson that no matter the good intentions you might have, if the system is still the system, you are going to fall flat on your face. You know,
so what is the Nigerian system? What system is in place right now? You're talking about what system is in place right now?
A very good example. In the UK, going to the UK is too far, because people will say, why are you always comparing Nigeria to the UK? In Rwanda, almost half of lawmakers are female. The average age of the lawmakers are between 25 and 55 to 60. In Rwanda, if you land into Rwanda today, by law, you must be able to register a business under 24 hours. In Rwanda, if you commit crime, the police will pick you up, they will document you, and you will be in court the next day. That is a system in place. It's not a glowing society. In Ghana, you know, people are too scared not to pay tax in Ghana, because there's a system in place where the available laws are enforced by the Ghanaian law enforcement agencies. That's the system. Now let us go far and wide. In the UK, if I want to join Labour Party or the Conservative, I just go online to their website and join as a non-paying member or a paid member. It's easy, and then you get an invitation to their ward meeting. I would attend the ward meeting. If I am interested, I will put myself for a position of a councillor. And that is why all over the UK, you see Nigerians who are even cleaners going into election to become councillors, and some win the elections. Are you following me? You know, that is a system. But in Nigeria, if you want to join a political party, to join the APC or a PDP in my ward, I have to bribe the local ward chairman to even get the membership card. So it's even difficult to join a political party, which is a platform where you would make a change. Then, if you form a political party, people don't know that in Nigeria we have almost 60-something political parties. But because the system is not transparent enough, the only two major political parties PDP and APC. The other political parties become briefcase political parties attached to the two major political parties. So we must change the system. Let me give you the most important one is the structure of the Nigerian Federation. It is unsustainable that the president in Abuja will determine who gets what in Abaji, in Umuroko, in Port Harcourt, in Zungeru. We need to devolve power from the center in such a way that the center becomes unattractive, you know, to everyone. So the important person will be your local government chairman. The funds that you get from your local community would sustain your community. There's no point for Nigeria to depend on the oil of the Niger Delta where they cannot even have a right to resource control. So those are systemic changes that are needed. And until we collectively resolve to do it, it's not going to go anywhere. That is why you see a lot of patriots going into politics and they are swallowed. I don't want to mention names. Some young people are running for presidency now. Have you noticed them doing the same thing that the so-called old politicians are doing? They are visiting traditional rulers. They are going to churches, the same churches we condemn, that those churches are also part of corruption. They have to go and bow to pastors and use the platform of the same pastors to run for public office. So it shows to you that the system is just certainly not right. And until we resolve to have a change in that system, we are wasting our time. The greatest opportunity would have been this government, the National Assembly and the presidency, the executive, agreeing to what is called a devolution of power, at least make some reforms on anti-corruption level, in taking some power, establishing state police, and those things that were talked about when people are campaigning for restructuring Nigeria. But that opportunity has been missed now.
Kayode, the system, the people's attitude and the system is the same people that will run a system. So how do you think the system will work if the attitude of the people do not change?
My simple question to that question is, why is it that, my simple answer is, why is it that when Nigerians, if you pick 1 million Nigerians from Nigeria, okay, well, that's even going too far. In the UK, we have about 1.6 million Nigerians. How come those same Nigerians obey the laws in this country? Because there's a system. Because you know that if you commit crime, you're going to go to jail. You can't escape it. Even if it's going to take 20 years, they will come after you. Why is it that when we had a military government and Buhari and Idi Agbon ruled with iron fist, people stopped weeing on the streets? People were too scared to steal because there was a strong system, but there was a strong individual. But now we need strong institutions, you know. Yes, the reason why people's attitude would not change is because that they know that if they don't change those attitudes, there is no enforcement. They are not going to pay for any crime they might commit. So that's why it's important that we must have laws. Look, even right now, we have some laws that are not being enforced. It's taken almost 11 years to convict someone who stole 1.5 billion naira. You know, Joshua Dariye and co, you know, his grandchild is probably going to get married before his case gets to the point where the judge will say, now I'm ready to deliver judgment. That's not a system. Ibori got into the UK. It didn't take 2 years to convict Ibori. You know, it's just gather the evidence, put it before the judiciary, and the case is won. So, but we have in Nigeria where you go to a police station, you need to actually buy fuel for the police to be able to go on patrol. The community would have to contribute money for the police to put fuel in their generator. So those things are systemic. If you change, if things work, Nigerians are not a horrible set of people. You know, if things work right, if there's electricity, if things go on right in Nigeria, Nigerians are the kind of people that they will adjust. If they see good governance, Nigerians see good governance, Nigeria would adjust their attitude. And of course, it is also right that we have a lot of people in our society who are not doing things right in our community. But try and put in facilities for them. No one would have a toilet on the side street, walking toilet on the side street, and they will decide to go and urinate in public. You know, those are the little simple things that needs to change in our community. So yes, the people make the system, But institutions, strong institutions, good institutions, also it changes the attitude of our people.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about the ease at which politicians decamp from one party to another, especially the elected politicians? They're in power, and then you feel that, you know what, I feel like moving to the next, to the next party. What are your thoughts on that?
I think all over the world, people have the rights of association. I am a Democrat, and I know I recognize the right of people to change groups that they want to belong. You are free to change them 300 times. I don't see anything wrong in people cross-carpeting. We have cross-carpeting in this country. We have Labour MPs who may decide to be Liberal Democrats or vice versa, or go as an independent. That is not what is wrong. What is wrong is the fact that in most cases, when they have done so in Nigeria, they don't pay dearly for it by the voters. In this country, if you change party from Labour to Liberal Democrats in a Labour stronghold, the idea is you might lose the next election. If you do so, same in a UKIP area or conservative area, you might lose election. But because they know that there is no price to pay for cross-carpeting every minute of the time, depending on the hour of the day, that is why you see the continued regular changing from one party to the other. Another thing is the role money play in the Nigerian politics. If you're a money bag and you are in the APC and you don't get a ticket of the APC or the PDP, you know that with more money, you can go and join Labour Party and you storm the society with a lot of money and you win election. So if we reduce the role money play in public office and the electoral process, people would know that. And if we have political parties that are based on ideology, people would not change from one party to the other. If you are in conservative and you believe in you don't believe in gay rights, you would not you wouldn't go to a Liberal Democrat that you know that they recognize the rights of the LGBT rights. So on the basis of that ideology or that principle, you would not change no matter what has happened in Conservative Party. But in Nigeria, there is no difference between the APC and the PDP, if you get what I'm saying. So
in terms of ideology.
In terms of ideology, so it's easy for people to change from one party to the other. I'm just going to add some electricity to this. Sorry.
Okay.
No, it's not NEPA. I just noticed that my battery was running. It's because there are no ideology. You know, there's not that much difference between the APC and the PDP or the PDP and the Labour Party. It's just names and acronym. So it's easier for people to change from one political party to the other because they are just platforms to get into public office. But if it's based on ideology, then people will remain within the platforms where they're elected. And again, on our law, what I think the changes we need to what we need to do in our electoral act is that once you're elected into public office as a member of a political party, immediately you change into another political party, it should trigger a by-election. If we do that, people will stop cross-carpeting as they wish. Imagine if Saraki decides to switch to PDP. It means he needs to step down and go for re-election, and he might lose that election. If a Buhari decides today that I don't want to be Nigerian president under the platform of the APC, I want to be under PDP, and it triggers a by-election, you know, politicians would think twice. So they would always wait for the 4-year term before the switch. So I think the simple solution is that, yes, you have a right to cross carpet, but as soon as you cross carpet, it will solution, and people will tend to stay longer within the political platforms. They get elected into public office.
Kayode, the Not Too Young to Run bill, was signed not too long ago. Do you realistically believe Nigeria can produce a president that is under the age of 40?
That's it.
Personally, I can. The signs are not there for me.
That's it. This is no disrespect to the young people we have, and they're doing quite a lot. Young people in Nigeria, they've changed the narrative of Nigeria in music globally, but for our hip hop artists, for Nollywood, only God knows the image we would have had as Nigerians. They have transformed Nigeria. Young people have. Anywhere you go, if you go to any nightclub in London now, the nightclub is not complete without the Nigerian music. And that Nigerian music is probably produced by a young guy. I don't think Wizkid is up to 30, And these are guys who bring huge investment, huge foreign currency into our country. So the impact of young people cannot be wished away. But there's a difference between active, conscious, talented young people in music, in IT, in engineering, in whatever field, and young people in politics. The young people we have in politics now, majority of them are the most mediocre of young people you can ever think about. And I'm not saying that out of spite. I mean, name one young person that has held public office in the country that has acted differently from the old people that were in politics. Should we talk about Dimeji Bankole? He was more or less disgraced out of public office. In Kogi State, is the governor not a young man, Yaya Bello? It's one controversy after the other. You can't see what he's doing. Is Dino Melaye, technically, Dino Melaye got into House of Reps by Nigerian started at a very young age, In Saliu, the one that had the fake Canadian, who became the head of House of Reps with fake Canadian certificate. But what needs to happen is that conscious young people, right, honest young people must now start taking part in active politics. They must join those political platforms in droves, as a group. They must identify themselves. If they do that, and if they start doing things differently from the older generation, possibly in the next 20 years, we might have a young person under the age of 40 as Nigerian president, or a young person at 40 as Nigerian president. But right now, I just think that we still need some time to have enough good young persons in public arena. And I think it's the duty and responsibility of those people in public office to identify young men and women in our community and give them areas of responsibility in terms of political appointment. When they've gathered that experience, then they are able to change our society. Young people in politics today are not enough good reflection of what I would have wished to have. They've not been acting any differently from the older generation, and that needs to change.
I asked Ruben Abati, he was on last week. I asked him this question. Tell me a good, a bad, and an ugly thing about the present government led by President Buhari. A good, and a bad, and an ugly thing.
Okay, I'll start from the ugly thing. I think they've made I have always supported President Buhari. Not the APC, but him personally. I've since 2007 up to when we encouraged him to run under CPC, and I had high hopes about him. But one of the disappointing thing, the ugly thing about this government is the attitude of the government to the Fulani herdsmen or the herdsmen farmers crisis. It is disappointing. It is a disgrace. The president and his government has not handled the crisis very well. Even if the crisis was not as a result of his own fault, they have treated that crisis with levity. They have not behaved like a government that cares about the whole of Nigeria. And it is really, really disappointing. And even sometimes when I start flipping between should I support this government in 2019, that area of the way they've handled the crisis in the of Fulani herdsmen is a blow that's always giving me a grave concern. So if you want to talk about the ugly, about the government. That is the very ugly part of the government. They've not handled the crisis in the Middle Belt and the Fulani herdsmen crisis well. They have not, their body language has not spoken well of a government that is responsible for the security of all Nigerians. It has painted the president. Even I personally don't believe that's who he is. But he has more or less consciously painted the president as a biased party, even when he doesn't mean to be biased. So I think that's one area I would call the ugly part of the government. In terms of the bad part of the government, I would say, and this will surprise a lot of people, anti-corruption. I held them at a very high level, especially with the character of President Buhari, that by now the anti-corruption campaign would have gained so much momentum that people will be running away from Nigeria. I think they've done enough, but they've not done well enough as expected by those of us who are their core supporters, that they've not been very fair in the anti-corruption campaign. I would have loved to see people across all political parties being charged to court. I would have loved to see the president even sacking members of his own cabinet. By now, telling the EFCC to look into the accounts of core members of his cabinet and publishing their bank accounts so that we can see what they came in when they came into public office. You know, there are just some things that could have been done differently that will make this government stand clearly differently from other governments, you know, in terms of anti-corruption campaign. If you compare to this Jonathan government, you score them like 90%, you know, in the way they've been fighting corruption. But if you score them by how it should be scored, I would say it's just average. The anti-corruption campaign has been average, in my opinion. The way they've handled the Babasha case, the way they handled the grass cutter incident, or people who have been alleged to be corrupt within the government, it's not been done very well. So that's the bad aspect. The good is infrastructure. It's amazing. The amount of investment on infrastructure by this government is something that should be celebrated by everyone, irrespective of your political party. Train, rail infrastructure, roads, they've done a lot of work. Even in Southeast Nigeria, except people just want to lie to themselves. I know that a lot of roads are being fixed and repaired. Lagos-Ibadan rail line is going on. Lagos-Ibadan express road. Roads across the country, if you're being fair, this government is investing in long-term infrastructural projects that would speak well for generations yet unborn. And I think they've done very well in that area. I think they have not done well in trying to let people know what they are doing. But from what I know, they've done quite a lot. And this is about one of the very few times in the country where we see money being invested on projects actually being carried out on the project. It's not that you say you are voting $1 billion on a project and we cannot see what you're doing with that project. So I think they've done quite well in that area, you know. And one of the things they've done very well is the fact that they have not abandoned the project started by Goodluck Jonathan, Obasanjo, and previous governments. They are continuing those. They have looked into some of these projects and they are saying, this is actually good for our country. So let us continue with it. If governments over time, irrespective of political party, you know, in the UK, continue with good projects of their previous predecessors, is the better for the country. I don't know if you know about the H2O fast train in the country, in Britain, that was started under, I think it's under a Labour government, because the Conservatives are continuing with the project. And that's one of the things the Buhari administration are doing very well. And I think they need to be commended for that. That would be the high point of their government in terms of investment on infrastructure. But they need to also marry that with investing on human infrastructure, because it's human beings that are going to use those roads, those rail lines. They need to invest on the community. They have a project where they give tokens to, I think it's 30,000 naira to unemployed youths and get them engaged. That is good. But they need to do more. They need to do more of that. They also have a project, the school feeding project, where they feed young school children. I think it's amazing. It was started in Osun State by Aregbesola, and it increased the number of young children into education. We don't know it because we are comfortable. There are lots of Nigerians in our villages who want their kids to go to school, but they won't let them go to school because they cannot eat one meal a day. So the government investing on school feeding across the country, is something that I'll say is one of the good parts of this government.
Before we round up, do you believe we have a good opposition party in Nigeria? I'm not only talking about, the PDP. Yeah. Is there a culture of having a good opposition party in Nigeria?
No, I don't think so. I think the last time we had an opposition party was the era where the now APC sort of formed a coalition against the PDP, so they could highlight almost on daily basis what was wrong and what they would do to replace the PDP. Even though now they are there's not so much a marked difference between them and the PDP. What we have in Nigeria are not opposition parties. It's just a coalition of people who want power, and they wait till when election is almost closed before they now wrap up momentum. An opposition party would make proposal as to what they would do differently. People just make noise, what my people will say, rake, really, and agonize and antagonize each other for nothing without any roadmap as to what they are going to do differently. You see people making outlandish claims that when they come, they are going to pay 10 million naira to workers. They are going to do this, which is also the same mistake the APC made in opposition. So I don't think we have enough opposition political party, but we have conscious Nigerians who have themselves formed themselves as opposition to bad governance. You can see them on social media. You can see them on the street. If you go, Jide, the best place you can find quality opposition in Nigeria is if you go to newspaper stands where they sell newspapers. If you hear the analysis of people in those places, you'll be shocked about the intelligence, the roadmap, the ideology, and you will find real-time solution, real-life solutions to the crisis in Nigeria. From where you get those vendors, where you have vendors, or if you go to bookers, or if you go to beer parlors, the kind of quality conversations that come out of those places, or even marketplaces, sadly, they don't have enough voice or enough platform to be in the mainstream. The few people in the mainstream are the same old tired people like us who keep repeating the same thing, that you have to change, you have good governance, and those in government know how to handle us. They either pick one of us and bring them into government, or they pay some young people to rubbish those of us who have refused to join government, or they cause disunity amongst us. Because even sometimes those of us who oppose each other, there are not a lot of differences between us. But because those in power know how to handle us, and because we're quite few, they get away with the crime they commit to our society. So the oppositions are on the streets of Nigeria, not on social media platforms, and not on political party platforms.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, we're going to run up with a 5-second teaser series of questions. There are 10 in all, and I give you two answers, and you have 5 seconds to pick just one answer. So let's do it. Write or speak?
Speak.
Which one do you speak?
Yeah.
Buhari or Goodluck?
Buhari, definitely.
100%. US or UK?
UK.
Hands or legs?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Legs, actually.
Jollof rice. Okay. Jollof rice or fried rice?
Jollof, any day. Nigerian jollof.
Ruben Abati or Dele Momodu in terms of their writing? The article.
Oh God! Why? No. Dele is my friend, is my brother, and I don't like Ruben Abati because he worked for Jonathan. But of course, Ruben Abati.
Parliamentary or presidential?
Parliamentary.
Early riser or night owl?
Night owl, actually.
Molue or Okada?
Okada, any day.
And finally, an opportunity to interview Mugabe or Trump.
Whew. Mugabe is an interesting person to interview. Mugabe, yeah.
Mugabe. Well, Kayode, that's the end of our chat. I thoroughly enjoyed having you as our guest. I'm sure those that tuned in and those that will watch the recorded version would pick up so many things. And I've always believed that the social platform is a bubble.
Yeah.
And every Nigerian that is on the social media platform, has a moral responsibility to pick up the good things and pass it on to those that do not have the opportunity to be on the social platform. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But Kayode, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have you again.
Thank you.
Viewers, that's LNC today. Please join us next week, and we have a special interesting guest coming up next week. Till then, God bless you, Kayode, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you.